Luckily, we have our own little slice of Saudi Arabia in America, a dry desert area filled with people who are way too into their religion. We call ours Utah, and I do very well there.
We are instructed to give unto you the law of consecration, as contained in the book of Doctrine and Covenants, in connection with the law of the gospel and the law of sacrifice, which you have already received. It is that you do consecrate yourselves, your time, talents, and everything with which the Lord has blessed you, or with which he may bless you, to the church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, for the building up of the kingdom of God on the earth, and for the establishment of Zion. Each of you, bring your right arm to the square. You and each of you covenant and promise before God, angels, and these witnesses at this altar, that you do accept the law of consecration as contained in the Doctrine and Covenants, in that you do consecrate yourselves, your time, talents, and everything with which the Lord has blessed you, or with which he may bless you, to the church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, for the building up of the kingdom of God on the earth, and for the establishment of Zion. Each of you, bow your head and say yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
We should also be cautious about the motivation of the one who provides information. That's why the scriptures warn us against priestcraft.
The Lord wants all his children to partake of the eternal blessings available in his temple. He has directed what each person must do to qualify to enter his holy house. All requirements to enter the temple relate to personal holiness. To assess that readiness, each person who wants to enjoy the blessings of the temple will have 2 interviews. First, with a bishop, bishopric counselor, or branch president. Second, with a stake or mission president or one of his counselors. In those interviews, several questions will be asked. Some of those questions have recently been edited for clarity. I would like to review them for you now. Are you a full tithe payer?
We pay tithing, as the Savior taught, by bringing the tithes into the storehouse. We do this by paying our tithing to our bishop or branch president. We do not pay tithing by contributing to our favorite charities. The contributions we should make to charities come from our own funds, not from the tithes we are commanded to pay to the storehouse of the Lord. Some time ago, I was speaking to a meeting of church leaders in a country outside of North America. As I spoke about tithing, I found myself saying something I had not intended to say. I told them the Lord was grieved that only a small fraction of the members in their nations relied on the Lord's promises and paid a full tithing. I warned that the Lord would withhold material and spiritual blessings when his covenant children were not keeping this vital commandment. I hope those leaders taught that principle to the members of the stakes and districts in their countries. The law of tithing and the promise of blessings to those who live it apply to the people of the Lord in every nation. I hope our members will qualify for the blessings of the Lord by paying a full tithing.
Tithing will keep your name enrolled among the people of God and protect you in the day of vengeance and burning.
One of our brethren some years ago spoke of the payment of tithing as fire insurance. Nonetheless, the word of the Lord is clear that those who do not keep the commandments and observe the laws of God shall be burned at the time of his coming. For that shall be a day of judgment, a day of sifting, a day of separating the good from the evil. I would venture a personal opinion that no event has occurred in all the history of the earth as dreadful as will be the day of the second coming, as fraught with the destructive forces of nature, as consequential for the nations of the earth, as terrible for the wicked, and as wonderful for the righteous.
The mandate given by the First Presidency and the presiding bishopric is to only focus on financial growth. EPA employees are told that the money will be used after the second coming of Jesus Christ or during Armageddon right before he would come again.
Travis Wayne Goodsell. Old school Mormons versus new Mormons on the block. New Mormons on the block ain't got game. Sit back down and learn from your elders. I got a comment or a question from Stanford. He sent me a YouTube link to a Saudi community in which they were advertising about how awesome it will be. And he was asking if this is anti-Zion. And it was a quick, easy answer. Of course it is. Because of the Book of Mormon. Anybody who knows their Book of Mormon knows how the economy of Zion is to be run. Anybody who knows the Book of Mormon to be true, therefore knows Joseph Smith's actual scriptures branching off from Zion and the economy of Zion, and be able to identify forged documents by the apostate apostle in section 86. And so, as I was checking out that video by Stanford, YouTube recommended a Rise Zion video on Zion concerning the law of consecration. He's still doing the itching ears videos. And so because of the combo from Stanford and Rise Zion, I decided to check on what Rise Zion was up to. Couldn't last too long. I endured long enough to get the general points, and he was just making way too many errors. I suspect that Seth is AI. I don't think he's a real Mormon. I think he's an AI fraud, deceiving Mormons. Because like I said, his symbol for Rise Zion is the crescent moon with a star for both communism and Islam. And the way you can distinguish AI is the errors that it makes. AI is not intelligent. It is a fraud. And to know the truth, you can expose something as AI. But unfortunately, AI is believed by the masses. And so you get people that spread the word of falsehood from AI, and it's just sickening. And so the church was concerned when AI was first becoming popular and held special meetings to make sure to clamp down on AI on search engines, to make sure that their falsehood prevails. And it's sad that Mormons refuse to study their scriptures, and I see the consequences of this in this video, if he's a legitimate Mormon. And not AI. He has the facial hair, which is typical for the younger generation of Mormons, Mormon men. Maybe younger women, I don't know. Which is a rebellion, a silent rebellion of the rising generation of Mormons. That they don't want to be associated with old school Mormonism. They consider old school Mormonism as wrong. They don't get it. They don't understand the real issues. I'm fresh off the mission. He's clearly young, as he's also got a gold chain. And I'm not seeing garments. Another big tell if it's AI. Because if he's a preemie, oh dear God, it means he has to be before 18, or he's evil and wicked and didn't go on a mission. You know, maybe he's a recent convert, which could also explain why he doesn't know anything. You know, like Kwaku. Dear God. I miss Kwaku. Plagiarism is proof of the Book of Mormon's truth. I can do a greatest classics of Kwaku. But he's not an authority. For the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, there is an authority structure. And this little kid, who's probably AI, doesn't seem to understand this. He lumps all authorities at all levels as having somewhat equal knowledge about church and the church doctrine, theology, ritual, practice, revelation from Jesus, etc. which is another error. If he is legitimate, and he is a returned missionary, doing videos, born and raised in the church, and for some reason he's just not wanting to look the part, then this is a sad fate for this church. Because he clearly does not even go to the temple. He's young. Maybe he hasn't gone enough. Another error that we old schoolers catch immediately. There are just some things that the younger generation needs experience with before they can claim to know it all. Dear God. And so, his topic was a talk in February to the stakes by an area president. He does not specify that. He even spells his name wrong. Another tell. The church spells it with 2 N's at the end. Naaman. He's an Area 70 Naaman. And apparently it was in Oregon where this was, where he came to speak. And he's assuming that he's in touch and in tune with the prophets and Jesus to talk on what he talks about. Oh, the younger generation, always good for a laugh. All he had was go and speak at this stake on this Sunday. Okay. That's it. It's not like conference, where now, under Nelson at least, they have to get their talks approved. It must be scanned and edited so that no Elder Pullmans or Paul H. Dunns or point kickers sneak through. But for the stakes, no, they don't care. They just make sure that nobody brings in their cell phone to record it, even though the stake will record it for the elderly who are not able to make it for a stake conference. And they'll make a recording available for them to watch. Or they'll connect it via the internet if the elderly or have a young deacon go over there to set it up for them. And so obviously by the title of his channel, Rise Zion, he's obsessed with the coming Zion. And this was another oopsie of his. Because like I said, they're all itching ears. 2 Timothy chapter 4. Did you miss that video, huh? You think that you can just miss videos and then attack me because I don't say everything that was in the previous videos. I'm at 8.7K 8,000 now. I saw that today. 8.7K. I have no idea how many he has. I don't give a damn. I already know he's not an authority. He is deceiving and lying to Mormons with shock value that are faith promoting for Mormons. And Mormons are following. He's getting thousands of views. And so people are liking what they hear, they're believing it, and yet he came out and said, we shouldn't assume what will happen for the latter days. That's his whole channel theme, assuming what will happen for the latter days and Zion. This cognitive dissonance in the younger generation is mind-boggling. It's just, oh my God. And so he's put out the call for some months now, I guess, in which he wants members to notify him of stake conferences and what they're talking about. Because he's noticing a pattern that all of a sudden they're escalating about the coming of Jesus. And he says that even Elder Naaman, with 2 N's, said that Jesus is coming. He's just like, yay! Isn't this awesome? And he quotes President Nelson at October conference, and then in April, and then misquotes him by adding his own words to Nelson. Oh my God. And I should know, for those of you who have been following my channel after April conference. I know the quote. And he quoted it until he didn't. Another oopsie. Just way too many oopsies by this guy. Dear God. And so he's saying that these state conferences are all focused on getting Mormons to prepare to receive the coming of Jesus. And for those of you who have not been following any of my 8.7K videos, let me remind you of little sister Jessica, who leaked the living prophet of Jesus, Dallin H. Oaks, at a mission meeting of new mission presidents in Las Vegas, Nevada, March 14th, 2020, in which he said, in chiasmus, this is not the end of the world, but merely a test, a trial run for the second coming. Now, if the church is actually doing this, telling Mormons they shouldn't assume what's going to happen, and then not telling Mormons what will happen, which, yeah, they've always done that. The second coming of Jesus is very clear by this church. Mass murder, because the presence of Jesus burns everybody. Nobody can stand in his presence. And so he's going to come and burn everybody. 2, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints got leaked by a whistleblower of Ensign Peak Advisors, who told us that the church is hoarding money for the second coming of Jesus. And so, collecting money. $10 trillion, $10 trillion, $10 trillion under Trump, his second coming. 2020's test run, oh my God, nothing compared to this time around. Church was well prepared for this hoarding of money. And 3, cooing of the governments. And he even said it. King of Kings. And again, he does itching ears. Stay tuned, I'll tell you more about it. Nah, bleep you, you even got that wrong. This is my field. I am the expert on this, and I even told you about it in today's video. The King of Kings means the king over tributary kings. And so, Jerusalem was not led by the King of King David. The King of King David was David Moses the third of Egypt, which included the land of Canaan. So all of the kings in the different nomes of Egypt, including up into Canaan, were tributary kings. There was no King David who sat on the throne of Jerusalem. He was in Egypt. When Melchizedek is told in the story about going to see Abraham, and Abraham pays tithing, no, and no, Melchizedek does not have a kingdom in Canaan. He's Pharaoh. Abraham went to recover his brother Lot and conquered the king to rescue his brother Lot. And as having conquered it, the King of Kings, Melchizedek, Zadok, king, high priest, the washing and anointing. This is really a no-brainer for Mormons. You just have to go, wait a minute. Melchizedek, temple initiatories. I am washed to become hereafter a high priest and a high priestess. Well, it doesn't say that, Travis. Really? So what is a priest after the order of Melchizedek? A high priest. Oh my God. And a king, anointed to become a king, to rule and reign in the house of Israel forever. And then you go and you get wedgied with the underwear, which they did away with after my first time. It was back in the 2000s when they allowed us to wear underwear through the whole thing rather than have the underwear put on. being naked under the shield. See, there's experience, and these young whippersnappers know nothing of. Okay? And he doesn't know this. We are to be joint heirs with Christ, so that we are not going to be tributary kings to Jesus. Let alone that it's not Jesus, because that's Christian, and that's all wrong, abominable, and corrupt. If he'd gone on his mission, he would have known that. We're Jewish. And so, he also makes a massive blunder, assuming that he knows, and oh my God, he doesn't. Dum 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 dum. It's in the search, so I should be able to quickly get back to it. Section 85. He makes the huge blunder in assuming that Edward Partridge is the one mighty and strong. Even President Joseph Fielding Smith Sr., in his book of a first presidency statement on this, said it is not him, Edward Partridge. But still, he got that wrong too, into thinking that it might have been, but he had just repented. And so therefore it's null and void. No, 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 no. This comes from the Jewish law about the Jewish Christ. The one mighty and strong is the Jewish Christ. Verse 20 in Deuteronomy 18 is verse 8, the false prophet. So there's going to be a false prophet who leads the great and abominable church that Mormons are a part of. And a one mighty and strong will be a Mormon raised up among the church to rescue Mormons out of it. But here's your big clue of the authority he has, and it's not anywhere near a bishop. Much higher. To set in order the house of God. And in case you're too young to know what that is, it's the temple. Who has authority to touch the temple with the ark of God in the Holy of Holies? Only one. And that's that true head of the church. That's why verse 8 is the false prophet. He is the one representing to Mormons to be the head of the church when he has no authority to do so. This other one will, and that's section 107, verse 91 and 92. How you can judge him by the fruits, so that you will not be deceived by false prophets, whom Joseph Smith warns Mormons will happen. Joseph Smith will be murdered, and the great apostate will steal his church and turn it Christian and destroy the temple rituals, called the abomination of desolation. Not just the endowment ceremony with covenant paths, but underwear and prostitution of women, just like the Greeks did to the Jerusalem temple. The president of the office of the high priesthood presides over the whole church and is the Jewish Christ, the man like Moses. To be a seer, revelator, translator. Every single conference, I tell you in advance, pay attention, they're not going to claim translator. And every time it happens, I then do the video, I told you so, and a prophet, which are the only gifts he bestows upon the head of the church, not all 15. This is not complicated. But you get these church leaders who tell Mormons to get a feeling about what they tell you to believe and don't bother to study because you don't want to assume how are you supposed to know things unless you study and read and run the scientific tests of agronomy to learn truth? All of these, you need to run that scientific truth, that scientific test for truth. Matthew chapter 7, starting in verse 15. You are supposed to judge. That's how. The science of agronomy. By their fruits you shall know them. So when they speak words, there are consequences when you obey them. If Nelson tells you that Jesus is coming in a coming day, and that you need to go to the temple, what is required for you to go to the temple? You have to pay the church. You have to be a full tithe payer. You are not allowed in if you are a partial tithe payer. Nelson did say that you can be a partial tithe payer, but he didn't change the temple recommend interviews. It was a trap. Okay. So, oh my God, Mormons. Oh my God. So section 85 is actually where we needed to go anyway, because that's the law of consecration. It is contrary to the will and commandment of God that those who receive not their inheritance by consecration agreeable to his law, the law of consecration for Zion, that Mormons get an inheritance consecrated to them. Do I need to read this again? Do you not have access to scriptures to check this? Those who receive not their inheritance by consecration agreeable to his law, that he may tithe his people. You get an inheritance for which you then give to what Joseph Smith repeatedly tells us and quotes Malachi to the storehouse. But the church says no. Let's see if anybody knows where this is coming from that I am going to read to you. You and each of you covenant and promise before God, angels, and these witnesses at this altar that you do accept the law of consecration as contained in this, the book of Doctrine and Covenants, in that you do consecrate yourselves, your time, your talents, and everything with which the Lord has blessed you, or with which he may bless you, to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, for the building up of the kingdom of God on the earth, and for the establishment of Zion. Do I need to read this again to let you know that this is in direct violation of Joseph Smith's law of consecration? And if you dare if you dare say, well, it's not in violation of section 119, do it. I dare you. This is a forged document. Every exfo, nevermo, who knows their Book of Mormon knows this is a fraud. So why don't Mormons? Unbelievable. Tithing is for the priesthood and the debts of the presidency, not just for the building of the house and laying the foundation for Zion, in which you are then worthy, as a Mormon, to live in it. Unbelievable. Complete contrary to what is plain, pure, and most precious in the Book of Mormon, Bible, and Joseph Smith. And yet this causes confusion among Mormons as they just speak and don't listen to what they are saying. Mormons have to pay to build the church, the hoarding of money. And they say it's for Jesus. Nothing in here is for Mormons to receive an inheritance and then pay the storehouse. Tithe to the storehouse. But there's a big difference in the Book of Mormon for the economy in Zion. The church says that this is a law to sanctify the land. Paying money sanctifies the land, that it may be most holy. And that you are not worthy to abide in Zion if you do not pay up. If you don't obey the other laws, the law of consecration, which is technically the law of tithing. section 119. Not Joseph's. So it's important to know what all exfo nevermos know, that section 20, 2 Nephi chapter 26. First discusses that it is abominable to practice priestcrafts, and defines it for us in case you're confused on what priestcraft is. He commandeth that there shall be no priestcrafts. For behold, priestcrafts are that men preach and set themselves up for a light unto the world, that they may get gain and praise of the world. Sounds like the church leaders. But aren't they a lay ministry? Because the local leaders are. The Area 70 are. But they seek not the welfare of Zion. Behold, the Lord hath forbidden this thing. And in case you are clueless about what's going on right now, Mormon lives are financially in ruins and getting worse. Under Trump, his second coming. The church is raking in money. $10 trillion. $6 billion for just enzyme peak advisors for 2020, while you suffered that year. The church is coming out like bandits. The church knew in advance of what was coming for 2020, because Oak said it's going to be a test run. Nobody was supposed to know that. The church left Mormons to themselves. They abandoned you. They fed you to the wolves. And the church profited off of that. And so here they go again. And you get these Mormons like Rise Mormon, who still thinks the church is true because it's not clicking in his brain, because he never bothered to run the Matthew 7, starting in verse 15, test. He has been led astray. And it shows how much he does not know Mormonism. Not this Mormonism, nor Joseph Smith's Mormonism. He knows nothing. He is making up his own Mormonism to match his made-up appearance, to distance himself from the traditional old-school Mormonism. He is showing the errors of the consequences of what the prophets are doing to this church under Nelson. He is a first generation of consequences of Nelson. After these 7 years, oops, we now know Nelson is a false prophet, even though I knew because I've been running the test the whole time. You need to have love. And in case you're clueless that charity is the wrong translation from the New Testament, he puts charity is love. Love is not a new definition of charity. This is not literal history. This is prophecy and revelation, which means contemporary men wrote this book. I'll give you a hint, it wasn't Joseph Smith Jr. He had nothing to do with this. He was a babysitter for Martin Harris, who was going to pay for the book, who insisted he be a part of it. And since he knew Joseph with the well, Senior put Junior in charge of babysitting Martin Harris to keep him happy. And so Joseph tells us that he was first, before Martin Harris arrived, copying the original document onto another document. The 116 pages were copied by Junior and then read to Martin Harris. That's why there was the curtain. Martin Harris didn't see him looking in the hat. He just knew of the hat and assumed that's what Joseph was doing. And writes it in his journal. And that's why everybody assumes that that's the way it was done. No. And so, what Martin Harris stole was not the original, not Joseph Smith's copy, but was Martin Harris's copy of the copy. That's what he stole. And so they had the original and the first copy. They could have literally given that back into the text, but section 10 makes it very clear why they can't do that. And so then Senior has to take over because he was there with William Morgan and the original 116. He knows the whole plot to destroy America right now. And so he had to be responsible to make sure that the 116 pages got rewritten, and then to merge it with where Sidney Rigdon began, with Mosiah, the Jewish Christ. God. The laborer in Zion shall labor for Zion. Zion is the people, the members who go there and receive an inheritance. And so you getting an inheritance in Zion, unless you're an exception, disabled, single mother, elderly, disabled, you labor to supply the storehouse, for which you and every other member in Zion gets everything you need from it, everything you want from it. There is no hoarding by the King of Kings. There is no hoarding by the priestcrafters. They are all equal. You are joint heirs with your actual Christ, the one mighty and strong, the man like Moses, the Jewish Christ. I did tell you it's not Jesus, right? For if you labor for money, Zion will perish. That's why the Saudi Arabian city is anti-Zion, because it's based upon an economy. It's $2 billion to build it. Or $2 trillion, sorry. Way too little. $2 trillion to build this Saudi city, for which the people who live there have to work and pay taxes to the city to recover the money lost. And of course, Mohammed bin Salman will be getting his cut as the King of Kings of Saudi Arabia. It will fail. They all will fail. Because you create a division between the rich and the poor whenever a monetary system of economy is used. Monetary systems of economy all fail. Zion cannot fail. And so there cannot be any kind, type, or form of monetary system of economy. You get an inheritance, and then you put into the storehouse what people would need, what people would want, so that all can benefit equally. You do not sell your stuff to other people in Zion. You do not have an underground black market economy. You don't have a gambling institution. You don't do trade or barter system. All just this once won't hurt. Yes, it will. You are out of Zion if you try to establish a priestcraft in Zion, a monetary system of economy. This is very clear. All exfo nevermos know that this is contrary to section 119. And I had a guy years ago when I talked about the economy in Zion generally, not specifically. And the guy commented, "I know exactly how Zion's economy will run. Ask me and I'll let you know." And so I said, well, if it's contrary to section or 2 Nephi chapter 26, it's not supposed to be used. Never heard from him since. He's gone. I don't get why Mormons don't get this. Why Mormons have to create Mormonism to make it true, according to their own spiritual witness feelings. This is a self-fulfilling prophecy that Mormons have been taught to do because of spiritual witness feelings. This is what the result of spiritual witness feelings has produced in Mormons, the rising generation. From 1990s, when psychologists were also going into the public school systems around the whole nation. The church, likewise, in the 90s, put a stop to studying the scriptures because of September 6 in 1993. They immediately saw that if Mormons were allowed to study their scriptures, they would find the contradictions. They would find questions that the church just doesn't want to have answered. They will find that the footnotes were crap and need to be completely revised. And then still denied my changes. Oh my hell, I am so pissed with them for that. They knew I had the Jesus card, and they still rejected me? Are you bleeping kidding me? So, 50 minutes. Got to figure out a picture for this now, too. Oh, God. All right. Ooh, that's an idea. But I have to transfer our files over. And most likely I'll put it up tomorrow. I'm ending for the day. Tomorrow. Because there's really nothing in the Trump ICE 2025 news. Yeah, no, I don't have anything written down for that anywhere. Yeah, there was nothing for the news. You know, Trump's back. He had talked to Fox about his feelings on being assassinated. I wanted to find out, you know, if it had more to do with other threats on his life, but I'm sure it was just Comey was the one part of it. The ear getting blown off. Magically healed. It's just hilarious. He has it, let's see, it's this here. And so he's speaking in this direction, talking about in Pennsylvania, he was given a rally, and then an assassin blew his ear off. And he keeps on talking, and God, and then he shows the ear. Oh, it's healed. As he says, he's preserved by God to make America great again. Classic in Trump speeches. So I can do it with Trump too, not just the leaders of the church. Great classics of Trump. Dear God. I have to, oh God, I have to put the law of consecration in. Law of consecration vid. Like hell, why don't I just screw everything and bring it all back onto this computer? God. And so we'll have the Zion pick with storehouse. Okay. Real simple. And yet, I guess it isn't. Because that's what section 103, or 85. That's what section 85 makes it very clear. That only the head of the church, who is the one mighty and strong, has authority to get inspiration for the economy of Zion and to set in order the temple. You know me by my fruits. If you are not already offended and long since left.